High above Gillette Stadium, 6 Super Bowl banners cast a long shadow over the stadium. The banners represent 20 years of winning, of being the best team in football. The architect of that team still reigns beneath the banners, but lately it feels as if they represented an era that has long passed, a distant memory that will only grow farther away with time. The architect's name is Bill Belichick. He wears a sweatshirt and never looks happy or sad during games, no matter what's happening. He's a loner, distant to his players and rough to the refs. Some think he's a genius, some a cheater, some a fraud. But above everything else, Bill Belichick is a fighter. Over time, he fought many wars to build and sustain this great dynasty. His legacy was not won overnight, and he had to fight wars against his quarterback, his former mentor, and the National Football League itself. These are Bill Belichick's wars. Before Bill Belichick was coach of the New England Patriots, he started his career as defensive coordinator for the New York Giants. Once, when visiting the Giants locker room, an NFL films crew asked him about his experience with the Giants.
I was just trying to establish my coaching career, be a good coach, win some games. And, man, we won a lot of them here. Oh, I loved it here.
Belichick became defensive coordinator of the Giants under head coach Bill Parcells in 1985, and over the next 5 years, he and Parcells would win 2 Super Bowls together. Bill and Bill had a great working relationship. While Parcells would often chastise Belichick in front of other coaches, they were both on the same page on how to implement a strong defensive game plan. And with the Giants pass rushers of Carl Banks, Harry Carson, and the greatest pass rusher ever, Lawrence Taylor, they were able to wreck teams' game plans week after week. In 1986, they won their first Super Bowl, and after the game, the Giants' defense rose Belichick above their shoulders. In 1990, the Giants faced off against the Buffalo Bills. The Bills were a rising juggernaut. Their offense was dominant, and they were 6-point favorites. The Giants were playing with their backup quarterback, but Belichick's defensive game plan kept Buffalo's offensive playmakers from taking a big lead. But with 9 seconds to go, the Bills had a chance to win their first Super Bowl if Scott Norwood could just make a 47-yard field goal attempt. The kick hung through the air and just barely went wide to the right. No good. The Giants had won their second Super Bowl in 5 years. Belichick was seen as one of the best defensive game managers in the league, so then he was hired as the Cleveland Browns' next head coach for the 1991 season. But nothing about this job went well. Bernie Kosar was the Cleveland Browns. The soft-spoken quarterback from Miami had captured the hearts of the blue-collar town and was the sports hero in Cleveland in the 1980s. No offense to Cavs center Brad Brenson, but when you go 15 and 67 in 1981, I gotta give the title to Bernie Kosar. They even wrote this song about Bernie.
Bernie, oh yeah, how you can throw.
When Bill Belichick came in as head coach, Kosar's best days were clearly behind him. In 1991, Belichick benched him for a young quarterback, Vinny Testaverde, whose name is real and he's not a character from Brooklyn in a weird novel. In 1993, Belichick cut Kosar from the team. When the press asked him about it, he spoke about Kosar's quote-unquote diminished skill. The Cleveland press thought that this was a disgrace. Bernie was a hero, and to call out his skill publicly and release him unceremoniously was tremendously disrespectful to his legacy. The Cleveland press had turned on Belichick almost as soon as he'd gotten the job. Here was this hotshot New York genius coming to tell Clevelanders how they should run their football team. Belichick had learned from Parcells to be standoffish and not answer questions directly when the media asked him. But Parcells had a charm about him that made him quotable and fun. So when he was annoying to reporters, they weren't upset, they were engaged and entertained. Bill Belichick could never do an ad for Tostitos chips like Parcells. Belichick did not have that kind of charisma and would constantly upset reporters who were looking for a scoop. Even Cleveland's owner, Art Modell, called out his own head coach in a Sports Illustrated article, saying he's been really difficult with people. He's nervous, shy, withdrawn. He won't be the master of ceremonies at many banquets. Belichick could be forgiven because the team on the field was getting better. In 1994, Belichick, along with defensive coordinator Nick Saban, were finally starting to turn things around, went 11-5 and made the playoffs. However, the core that they had built up would collapse the following year when all hell broke loose. Owner Art Modell was going bankrupt, and he wanted updates to Cleveland Municipal Stadium, but he couldn't pay for them themselves. City Council had been dragging its feet, so secretly he began meeting with officials from Baltimore, and in 1995, in the middle of the season, announced that the Browns would move at the end of the year. Cleveland fans erupted with disgust. One of the oldest franchises in the NFL, a mainstay of the community, was being torn apart without their consent. Protests were held throughout the city. Cleveland-based companies pulled their sponsorships from the stadium, and in the last game ever played at the Dog Pound, fans brought power tools and tore up the benches and threw them onto the field. When Modell moved the Browns to Cleveland to become the Ravens, he did not ask Belichick back to coach the next season. Belichick didn't get a head coach offer from any other NFL team either, so he went back to his former mentor Parcells and worked with him as an assistant for the New England Patriots. But his desire to step out of his mentor's shadow still lingered. Let's set the scene. 4 years after Belichick and Parcells joined forces in New England, they followed each other to the New York Jets. And for the last 3 years, Belichick has been Parcells' defensive coordinator. But today is a ceremonious day in the Jets practice facility. Today, Belichick will be succeeding his mentor of over 15 years and become the New York Jets' next head coach. But when Belichick gets up to the podium, he doesn't say how this team will be different or what he will bring to the job. He immediately resigns. He was coach of the Jets for 1 day.
Huh? How did that happen?
Right before the Super Bowl in 1997, with Bill Parcells as the head coach of the New England Patriots, rumors were swirling that Parcells was going to jump ship and go to be the coach of the New York Jets.
That move became official right after the Super Bowl. With the head coaching vacancy, Patriots owner Robert Kraft did interview Belichick for the head coaching position, but decided against hiring him because he was resentful of anyone in Parcells' circles. So Kraft hired Pete Carroll, but then he fired him, and then he wanted Belichick again 3 years later. Belichick had gone with Parcells to the Jets to become defensive coordinator, so now Kraft sent the Jets a fax that said he wanted to interview Belichick.
Here's where things get a little complicated. In Bill Parcells' contract, there was a clause that if he resigned, Bill Belichick would immediately become the head coach of the Jets.
Parcells saw the facts and thought, okay, I'll resign. I'll force Belichick to get the Jets head coaching job, and that'll be that.
But Belichick didn't want the job. For one, Parcells said that he would stay within the organization in a front office role. This got Belichick fearful that if he hit rocky waters, Parcells might simply jump back into becoming head coach.
The Cleveland experience for Belichick had been an embarrassment.
Belichick was already 47, and this might be his last real opportunity to coach a team himself, without Parcells looking over him.
He took the chance to get away and never looked back. In his second season with the New England Patriots,
Bill Belichick's starting quarterback Drew Bledsoe got hurt in the third game, and in came Tom Brady. Both Brady and Belichick had been overlooked. Bill Belichick is a man who purely rode Parcells' coattails to success, and Brady at Michigan when he wasn't named the starter in his senior season, and in the NFL draft when he had fallen to the 6th round. With Brady as their quarterback, the Patriots made a magical run all the way to the Super Bowl, and in that Super Bowl, Belichick employed a similar strategy that he had against the Buffalo Bills 12 years before. The Rams' offense was hampered by the Patriots' dominant defense, and when Adam Vinatieri sunk a field goal with the final seconds ticking down, Bill Belichick was finally a Super Bowl champion as a head coach. For the NFL, this was a great underdog story. A franchise that was inept for 50 years became king. A quarterback no one thought would start was now at the NFL's peak. And right after 9/11, a team called the Patriots was world champions. Then the Patriots won 2 out of the 3 next Super Bowls. Belichick had now emerged out of Parcells' shadow. In his first 4 years as Patriots head coach, he had won more Super Bowl rings than his former mentor ever had. But with the winning came a massive target on the Patriots' back. No longer were they a cheered underdog. They were the bad boy of the league. And it wasn't just other teams that Belichick was facing off against, but the entire league itself. Bill and his coaches were like a family. Assistant coaches for the Patriots would often work 19-hour days even in the off-season. If the Pats coaching staff was like a family, then Eric Mangini was like Bill Belichick's surrogate son. Belichick had met Mangini when he was just a ball boy for the Cleveland Browns, and Belichick, he promoted him to become an offensive assistant under him in Cleveland, and then Mangini followed Belichick as an assistant to the Jets and eventually to the Patriots, where he rose to the rank of defensive coordinator. Mangini admired everything about what Belichick did, and even named one of his children after him. In 2006, after the season, Mangini had gotten a head coaching offer by the New York Jets and took it. Immediately after Mangini was hired, he tried to poach some of the Patriots' assistants to join him in New York to be on his new staff. Belichick subsequently changed the locks at Gillette Stadium so Mangini could not get in. Mangini and Belichick now didn't even speak. The problem for Belichick was that Mangini knew all the Patriots' dirty little secrets. As a team, the Patriots used every advantage they could to win. They bent the rules because it was part of Belichick's game. One aspect of doing that was recording the opposing team's sidelines during games and trying to decipher their hand signals to interpret what play they were about to call. When playing the Jets one year, Mangini knew all about this secret practice and privately told the Pats to knock it off. When they did not and he still spotted cameras filming his sideline during the game, he got the NFL involved. You see, you can film promotional stuff for your team on the field, the TV cameras can capture your coach talking to other players, but when you have an independent film crew specifically trying to capture other teams' signals, this was strictly against the rules. The NFL investigated and eventually found a treasure trove of tapes that the Patriots had taken of other teams in their practice facility. The tapes went back years and had information on almost every big team they'd faced. Then the league decided for their own good the tape should be destroyed. The investigation was quickly closed, the Pats were fined, and the whole thing was thrown under the rug. Belichick was fined $500,000 and the Patriots lost a few draft picks. The fallout from Spygate, as it was called, caused different reactions from different sets of fans. For fans of other teams, it felt as if the Patriots had gotten special treatment. There was more tapes to look at, more to uncover about how far this scandal really went, but the league wanted that gone so their golden franchise could stay on top. But for the Patriots, it felt like they were being unfairly scrutinized. Other teams could have done the same, they just weren't as smart. The legality and advantage that the tapes caused is still up for debate. For Mangini, ratting out Belichick permanently tainted his relationship with his hero. Their handshakes after Jets-Patriots games became increasingly colder.
What did you say to Mangini after the game?
You want to talk about the game? We're not going to get it up. The guy and Eric,
According to a book, after a dinner for NFL head coaches, Julie Mangini, wife of Eric, bumped into Belichick and said hi, trying to ease the tension after the post-Spygate fallout. Belichick blew her off, and when she told Eric what had happened, Eric charged across the room and needed to be held back by other coaches from swinging at Belichick. "Hey, Bill, f*** you," Mangini yelled. The season after the scandal broke, Belichick went scorched earth, and his Patriots ran the table and went 16-0. In the Super Bowl that year, Belichick faced off against his former team, the New York Giants. If Bill Belichick could pull off a perfect season, it would cement his legacy as being the greatest football coach of all time. But the Giants, who he faced off against, were coached like the old Giants teams Belichick ran in the 80s and 90s. Their dominant defense held the Patriots to just 14 points, and the Pats lost the Super Bowl and their chance at history. After the game, Belichick sounded lost.
This is difficult. What do you tell your team after, a perfect season up till this point?
Yeah, well, we're disappointed.
Okay, Coach, thanks very much, right?
Okay, Chris.
Appreciate it.
It was the worst loss of Bill Belichick's career. And then it happened again 4 years later, and that was the second worst loss of Bill Belichick's career. Bill Belichick wasn't just the head coach of the Patriots, he was also the general manager, and he would consistently have to tear down and remake the team year after year. Big stars on the Pats were often let go early and replaced with young talent. Bill was a craftsman of scouting young talent. Over the years, he drafted wide receiver Julian Edelman, who would become a clutch receiver whenever the Patriots needed him. Tight end Rob Gronkowski, whose dominant catching and blocking skills made him a force on offense. And tight end Aaron Hernandez, who murdered a guy. Throughout it all, the teardowns, the trades, cut day, one player stayed starting quarterback of the Patriots since 2002, Tom Brady. Belichick and Tom were made for each other. Both were studious junkies, both perfectionists. But as head coach, to Belichick, no one player could become above the team. And after 10 beautiful, peaceful years together in a marriage, things began to crack between Brady and Belichick. It all started with a little affair. Jimmy Garoppolo started the first 4 games of the 2016 Patriots season at quarterback because of deflategate. What's deflategate? You all kind of know, but let's go through it quickly. In the 2014 AFC Championship game, the Patriots underinflated their footballs. The Colts found out about this because they picked the ball off early in the second quarter and then had the ball tested. Then all the Patriots balls were tested and almost all of them were underinflated. So let's do a deflategate Q&A. Who knew about the deflated footballs? Brady probably. It was up to him on how to condition the footballs. Question 2. Did deflategate affect the outcome of the game? No. The Patriots beat the Colts 45-7. Maybe on one of the touchdowns, Brady was able to throw it because it was 1 or 2 PSI lower than average, but it's a 38-point deficit. I mean, come on. Did this violate the rules? Probably. How should the NFL respond? Unknown. There was no precedent for what the punishment on such an action should be. But because of how the NFL threw Spygate under the rug, many owners pushed hard at the league to give deflategate a full and thorough investigation and come down hard on the Patriots, who were considered second-time offenders. With the investigation on the way, Belichick put out a statement that said, "Tom would know more than I would. I don't know anything about how we condition the balls." Brady felt a bit betrayed here. Then, the final NFL ruling was a 4-game suspension for Brady. Brady said no and sued the NFL in federal court, which ultimately delayed the suspension a year because he won, but then he lost on appeal. So, in the 2016 season, he was finally serving this suspension. With Brady out of the picture early in the season, the Patriots started a few games with Jimmy Garoppolo. The beautiful face, young legs, passing motion, Bill Belichick was in love. Privately, he wanted to move on from Brady soon. Tension lingered between Brady and Garoppolo as well. When the Patriots won the Super Bowl on a Malcolm Butler pick, Brady jumped and yelled and clearly ignored Garoppolo, who was trying to embrace him. The reason Belichick wanted to move on from Brady was that there was no track record of a quarterback being that good at his age. But in that year's Super Bowl, Brady proved he had a lot left in the tank. Super Bowl 51 was the biggest personification of the Pats dynasty. They came back from down 28-3 late in the third quarter, and Belichick and Brady pushed all the right buttons to mount the greatest comeback in Super Bowl history. They now had 5 rings together, more than any other quarterback and coach combination. With all the success, Tom Brady was getting a bit weird. He made a documentary about retiring and in it kissed his son directly on the lips. He invested in a cryptocurrency company that was a total scam and had a really weird guy, Alex Guerrero, become his quote-unquote spiritual guide. Guerrero would serve Brady in the Pat's practice facility, and he began to treat other players with this pseudoscience weird stuff. Belichick didn't like this at all. The Patriots had doctors on their staff, and Guerrero wasn't one and was giving the players lots of advice. Therefore, Belichick banned Guerrero from boarding the Patriots' private jet. Guerrero had his game day sideline access revoked, and he could no longer treat players besides Brady at his Gillette Stadium office. Patriots owner Robert Kraft, who sensed a rift between Belichick and Brady, told Belichick he must trade away Garoppolo to show his loyalty to Tom. Belichick obliged, and with that, the Patriots won another Super Bowl in 2018, their 6th together. 2 years later, in 2020, Brady was finally tired of Bill. His domineering presence, constant rules, and overall vibe, the relationship had run its course. In March 2020, Brady signed with the Tampa Bay Buccaneers, thus ending the greatest coach-quarterback combination in NFL history. In his first season in Tampa, Tom won a Super Bowl, his 7th. He proved that he didn't need Belichick to win and cemented himself as the greatest football player of all time. Belichick, in the meantime, struggled in the COVID season with quarterback Cam Newton.
Atmosphere like in the stadium without fans there? Can you compare it to anything else that you've experienced in your football life?
Practice.
Brady then retired at the end of the 2022 season. For Eric Mangini, he never could cut it as a head coach. He was fired by the Jets and then the Browns. Most of Belichick's assistants have had minimal success when hired as head coaches elsewhere. Matt Patricia, Joe Judge, Bill O'Brien, and Josh McDaniels have all been fired. The aura of the way Bill does things is hard to imitate without Belichick's credibility. Since Brady left, Belichick's teams have been subpar. It truly feels as if the dynasty is finally over. But Belichick remains, always fighting. Some say he's a cheater. Some say he rode Brady's coattails and on his own is a mid-level coach. Others say he's malicious, cold, and mean. But the man fought battles on the gridiron for over 40 years. He didn't win them all, but throughout it all, he kept fighting. Bill Belichick's mantra is do your job. It's simplistic, unambiguous. If everyone does their job, the chances of winning increase greatly. Over the years, he employed a countless number of fellow coaches and players repeatedly to just do their jobs. There's one person he never had to tell to do his job. That person is Bill himself, because when it's all said and done, it will be obvious that no head coach ever did as good a job as Bill Belichick.